Well, hello, welcome back. Happy Monday. Here's another MFL resource video that I hope is helpful for you. This one is the bread and butter, really, of my language classroom. If you've got mini whiteboards and you've got pens and you're starting a new topic with a class, this works really well for difficult classes. It works really well for boys because they're quite competitive and they like to get a bit lively and a bit boisterous, and this helps them with that. In terms of being low prep, once you've got the sentences, you can just put them into the box. I recommend with your sentence builder at the start of a topic, either with the students themselves or yourself, create a nice 25, 30 sentence list with translations of kind of the bulk of the possible vocabulary from the sentence builder, because it means that you can just go in and copy and paste at that point. So we've got 16 here, doesn't have to be 16. It's got some translations on the bottom as a helpful extension activity. It also gets the students thinking, okay, what does that mean? Again, we want to get them noticing grammar. We want to get them to notice, in this instance, the difference between the future tense and the present tense. So even, middle ability students will spot écrire as different to écrit, and they'll start asking the questions, but also because you'll be providing the translations, you'll be providing the dictation, probably in the reverse order, but you'll be providing them with listening input and also kind of clues. If you're on it and your class, you can start throwing out clues and getting them to do the processing for you rather than just telling them. It is something I've been reflecting on over the weekend, that we want to be bringing children about to learn rather than just teaching them. And I think there is a difference between a teacher who simply teaches and a teacher who brings about learning, and that is inevitably involving the pupil, that second one. So in this instance, we've got number one, for instance, si je réussis à mes examens, je serai célèbre. So we've got two things that we're trying to focus on. Si je, si, the if, and then je serai, the future tense there. And we've got a bunch of different verbs. Now, the way that this might start, I would typically get the boys to write the numbers down on the board. I made that mistake, by the way, in my PGCE. I was waiting for students to write down the sentences. And here's a tip. Always know what you're trying to achieve with an activity. I'm not one of these teachers that thinks that you have to have everything under lock and key, under control. What's happening, what the students are going to be achieving, because at the end of the day, they're human beings. You can give them some stuff will go in, more stuff might go in, some days it just doesn't go in. But if you know what you're trying to achieve, as a languages teacher, it seems to me that we are fulfilling a role that isn't exhaustive, but it is marked, it's assessed at the end of the day. So they're not going to get exhaustive German or French from my classroom. But I like to think of it as the starter motor that kickstarts the bigger motor. It's giving them the inspiration, it's giving them the motivation. It's giving them, hopefully, if you think about the Common European Framework reference, the A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, C2, hopefully we can get kids to B1. I mean, that's with, the odd class here and there and the odd homework, that's not easy. Languages, if it's worth doing, do it every day. And we don't get that opportunity. So it's hard, but hopefully if we do things smart, we are actually giving children and adults an actual ability in the language that's not just going to vanish as soon as they leave school. So with this sentence bingo, my aim for this would be lots of listening, lots of dictation, and then eventually some translation. But I want to get their brains used to seeing all of this new vocabulary, and I want them to notice it, recognize the differences from the French of the previous topic, all of these kind of base cognitive things. Oh, wow, that letter's different. Well, that's an important step in their language learning. I think the listening element's really, really important here. And so actually, I really wouldn't skip over the French to French. I'd kind of maybe even, emphasize that. I'd kind of do that a lot. If you've got a good class and they're really on it, don't rush them. You know, having a lesson of listening to some half decent pronunciation from yours truly, that's quite good. That's quite good. You could get them afterwards to just spotted a typo. I'm ashamed. I apologise. You know, get them to do it. Get them to arrange themselves in groups of 2, 3, 4. As I say, this is real bread and butter, and it's so simple. You've got an extension activity there, which can, as I say, said with the lie detector, kind of chop into the middle of an activity and gives you an opportunity to add a bit of spice, you know, add something slightly different. But, you know, don't try and reinvent the wheel. Don't try and be, you know, the hottest MFL teacher. You might be brilliant, but these kids really don't care at the end of the day. What they care about is having a good time and learning some French. And you can do that with some pretty straightforward and not simple, but not overly complicated ideas. And I think if you've got a resource that's working, roll with it. If it's not working, okay, that's why we should be doing our planning beforehand, just to make sure we've got something in our back pocket. But you know, if it's working, roll with it. So that's bingo, and you could do the French to French. Obviously, after that, you could start giving the answers in English. Now, that is actually a little bit more difficult, and I have made the mistake in the past of going quicker. And bless them, you just leave your lower ability kids behind because they're still trying to figure out, you know, it's not just code switching, they're trying to figure out, okay, well, that's si je réussis and si je réalise. They both start with R. You know, and by that time you've moved on, you know, and they've missed the number, and eventually they get a bit disheartened at the end because they actually had the number written down, but they hadn't figured it out. So think of some, you know, some differentiation there, even if it's just group them together, put them in pairs, you know, try and find a link to higher ability, which will obviously end up with all of these 16 sentences in English, and you're saying them in French. And that's kind of, I think, the peak for my sort of MFL classroom is when I can give students under time pressure, and they're still enjoying it, English sentences to translate into French. And they get it, you know, 100% correct in all writing, speaking, listening, whatever. So that is sentence bingo. Big fan, really like it. Make sure you've got mini whiteboards and pens. Here's a second activity, which you could do in a variety of ways, really. It's a translation activity at the end of the day. Now, if you start off with translation, works. You could do dictation to start off with. Again, we're trying to think of French to French as the easiest, and we want to make sure that we've got that foundation really established. If they haven't got that established, I appreciate that, you know, we've got to manage schemes of work and line managers and senior leadership. We're not actually really helping them if they can't get French to French. And that's the listening. And that is a massive, massive component of being a confident linguist, is the ability to parse different sounds and figure them out and be able to hopefully eventually put them down on paper as you heard them. That's dictation, French to French. I really encourage you, don't skip over that. You know, maybe you could do the bingo and this, and it's all French to French. Fantastic. Really, you know, that's why I've included this here, is so that I can, you know, react to a situation that unfolds in front of me. And that's just something I've learned over time, is on a PowerPoint, have something that if it all goes to pot, right, I can grab that and I can kind of salvage something out of it that's still really useful for the children. At the end of the day, just like a delayed dictation, which is something I learned from a Conti CPD seminar. Brilliant, you know, and it works, and it's simple and it's straightforward. And again, you don't need to reinvent the wheel with that. So with this one, you can do the dictation. That's why you've got this resource. You can also do the English to French, do French to English. you could have a variety of slides here, all with the different animations. So, you've got your clicker and they come in, and that works. And that's 5 minutes, it's 10 minutes. It does take a bit of time to set up, especially if you struggle with PowerPoint, but it's pretty good. It's handy. Again, you're just looking for activities that you can kind of create and then branch out with different activities. And with this one, you've got a variety of ideas. If you wanted to do like an English to French, you could also do that. And you've given them scaffolding here so that they've got an ability to get it right, particularly if they're lower ability. You're not just giving them an impossible task. You're giving them a challenge, rather than an impossible task. And I think the difference between the two is that a challenge is something that they feel is achievable. Second one here, and as you may notice, we've got different sentences. Again, it's just straightforward. If you wanted to give them a bit of a grammar task, you could, you could give them the sentence in the present tense, and then you could give them the sentence in the future tense. I'm just giving you some ideas here, but this is perhaps not as expansive as Pair Finder and Lie Detector. It is pretty straightforward, but don't just rattle through it. If you're doing your planning beforehand, just think, okay, how could I give an extension activity here, highlight the verbs, that kind of thing. Try and make it as useful, as you can. Really try and suck as much out of it as possible, but at the same time, as with all things, we seek balance. Don't, once you've reached the point of where you've got the goodness out of it, stop and move on. And this last one, I don't want to overlook this one, because with boys, I'm always looking to get them out of the seats. And if I can give them an opportunity to do that, it's just really, really exciting for them. And it's a successful activity because it's got them speaking, it's got them motivated about the language. And I am walking around with my clicker and I'm dropping little hints here. Okay, pronunciation of this, or think about this. Have you, tried using a variety of vocabulary? Say I've heard a student just using the same vocabulary over and over again. That's why the teacher presence is quite important. We do want to kind of take a step back at points and let them figure stuff out, but we are there to problem solve, to point things out. And so this is fairly straightforward, this one. It's sentence builder on the board, and get them to bang the question all the time. Qu'est-ce que tu feras à l'avenir? Qu'est-ce que tu feras à l'avenir? And then you go from left to right across and you're building a sentence. Now, you could prime this, and prime the students with this and prep them by doing some call and repeat, spot the verb. You could go through beforehand, or you could give them the handout, or it could be on the board, and you could say, right, figure out the least used vocabulary in this sentence builder, and I want you to use it. This also, by the way, could be used as like an alternative pair finder. Rather than trying to find a pair, you need to write down 2 sentences, 3 sentences, quite a lot of language here, and you want to have a sentence that nobody else has. And if you do that, you win a merit, you win a point. So again, we're just looking for ways to make simple speaking activities more useful, more engaging, slightly different, add a bit of variety, all that sort of stuff. So I hope that's helpful. We've kind of covered 3 activities there: the sentence bingo, mini whiteboard translations, but with a bit of prep beforehand to give us some options. And then we've just got a simple talk to your partner about plans. And that's, I would say, could either be the last activity of the lesson, or if you've got a good, reliable class, 5 minutes, really quick, let's blitz it. Okay, so I hope that's been helpful. And please like, comment, subscribe, share it with your friends, linguists or not. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.